This work is considered an occult classic, and diving into the romantic vision of Egyptian magic, amulets, all the typical tropes of that subgenre. And even though it is meant to instruct learned practitioners of sorcery, it actually contains classic narrative motifs and a fairly traditional set of recommendations. So I will give you some details on the work and tell you why I do think it's a worthy addition to your library. Stay tuned. Welcome to biblioCultist, where I review books that I find interesting in the topics of religion, philosophy, history, and fiction. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, like the video, share the video, comment on the video. Also follow me on X, I'll put it on the bottom, and I'll put my Ko-Fi account in which you can do donations. It could be recurring or it could be singular. Also, I have the link there for my merch store if you want to check out what I have. And doing all these things really helps the channel out. I appreciate those who have been subscribing and sharing it, especially considering the fact that I have a pretty eclectic sort of content here, because I go from Christianity to occultism, then I go into Eastern religions, then I go into fiction and sci-fi and fantasy, all over the place, because these are my interests. I actually like all these things. So the fact that people enjoy those things too, or at least enjoy learning about them, is very satisfying, and again, I am very appreciative. In this episode, I'm going over the Black Pullet, and this edition I have here is by Black Letter Press from 2020. Now, I know there are other editions out there, but this edition is pretty awesome, and you can find it on their website or online wherever you search for books. You may be able to locate this particular edition, and they have an even higher version of it, and they probably have a soft cover. The quality of Black Letter Press books is always awesome. The attention to detail to make sure that the work that they are reprinting, because a lot of these are classics, is always excellent work. So the origin of this book is a little bit all over the place, because it is actually a compilation, it seems to be, from old books that were already around the 17th century. And whoever put this book together took pieces of different works to kind of generate this one. And we do have historical evidence that has been around for a little bit, primarily because of the talismans and the practical advice. But there is a narrative structure, almost like a little novel, that comes before all the talismans and all the fun magical stuff, and that to me is the most valuable aspect of the work. I will put some of the basic details on this work for those that are interested on the notes, and you can check them out there. But to start the review, I do want to read a short quote that I think will set the stage. "So you see, my son, that we need not fear poverty. All of this is for you. And I am nearing the end of my life, and I shall be glad to leave this treasure with you. Nothing here is the fruit of avarice or dishonesty. Rather, I gained these riches through my knowledge of occult science, and the grace granted me that I might learn the secrets of nature. Through that science and divine favor, I command the invisible powers that inhabit the heavens and the earth." So a lot of cool elements there. One is natural theology, pretty clear. The notion that you can know God through the study of nature. And this is an Aristotelian concept par excellence, meaning it's not his creation, but it came to the West through Aristotle. And it is a form of empiricism, although it goes beyond that, because the argument is that you can know the divine through the study of the effects of the divine, meaning the creation of the divine, or the manifestation of the divine. It depends on your point of view, theologically speaking. But most occult books all presuppose that by studying nature and knowing nature to the point of scientific excellence, obviously at the level of the occultist of the period, then you can control nature, therefore know the mind of God. Also fascinating that occultists of the time also equated knowledge with wealth, which is obviously not the case anymore, and therefore I would call it idealistic. There is almost a revolutionary feel to it because it is the idea that just by dedicating time and energy to a certain endeavor, it will create a natural effect in the universe that will be wealth, power, influence, etc. And it may not have been fully idealistic or egalitarian at the time to see it that way, but it's pretty clear that that is the main gist of even modern conceptions of wealth, except that intellect is not involved in it per se. It's more about dedication or finding a gimmick or some edge in the market, or getting lucky enough that someone can profit from whatever you're doing, even if it's not that good, and then somehow you can make it. So from that point of view, it is idealistic. Now, this book pulls and bases itself in a lot of the myths that developed around the destruction of the Great Library of Alexandria. And this event created a lot of powerful lore around possible surviving books. Books that somehow escape the fires for some reason or another and are found randomly via exploration. And of course, as a bibliophile, I love this idea because I am a book hunter. Also, I go around trying to find old books that have been left behind, that people are not interested in them anymore, and then I find them, and to me they are a treasure. So obviously I can relate to this very much, as every single one of you who loves books can as well. So I can see the appeal. I would have loved reading a book like this that gave me the hope of finding these great books that everyone thought to have been burned. So just that premise, right? You find this cave, you find this mystery man who seems to have a private library of these hidden books, and then he gives you access to them. It's obviously quite alluring. The theological content in the work is clearly Christian, with the occasional obvious heretical speculations and deviations, which you find in almost every occult book of the period. And again, because a lot of occultism has this alchemical influence, it is usually obsessed with naturalism. So it is this interplay, classic in Hermeticism as well, of God as nature, or at least as a reflection of nature, or nature as a reflection of God, as above, so below. But the reason I mentioned the fact that it is Christian is because for modern occultists, their hatred of Christianity is so intense that they fail to realize that all their fathers, so-called, their foundational thinkers, were at the end of the day Christians. They may not have been orthodox in belief, nor in practice, although this would be a stretch, because a lot of these occultists did practice in a traditional way and believed in a traditional way. But even if we speculate they were not, that their deviant conceptions of theological truth were somehow permanent views and they were not just artistic renditions, we're still stuck with the fact that most of the morality being advocated for is not laissez-faire libertarianism. It is clearly still within a traditional structure. One element that is interesting that goes in that opposite direction would be the obsession of these books, especially this one, on dominating people, circumstances, destinies. And that is the whole point of these amulets and these talismans and formulas. Always assuming the human potential is somehow limitless and even godlike, you could say. There's a childlike innocence in this work that doesn't contain the typical insidiousness found in modern works. Optimism about existence, basically, and the cooperative role between God and humans. This is, again, quite a distance from modern works on this topic. And I've read plenty of them. My library has a whole section of just grimoires and obscure works from the past, but I also have modern works. And although sometimes you could find a jewel in the bunch, they are usually quite boring cliche and devoid of any real meaning. And the reason is because they have adopted postmodernism, relativism, nominalism. And when you accept these things, you're basically floating around somehow trying to grasp at meaning. And you can't. But you can't say this of the old grimoires, which assumed and presupposed eternality, transcendentals, etc. So they were at least standing on something, and they were just experimenting or speculating on the consequences. But most of them were just playing a little bit with the other side, with the villains of the story. But in modern works, no heroes, no villains. Villains could be heroes, heroes could be villains. It breeds pretty bad reading and really bad occultism. Going back to this work, it is clearly Oriental exoticism at its best, with the slight order of Islamic mysticism, or at least the Western interpretation of what that means, because jinns are clearly the main characters here. It's pretty obvious that that's who they're supposed to be talking about. And because the jinns in the Quranic milieu are basically beings that also have free will, but are made out of smokeless fire, then they have the capacity to make decisions, convert to religions, etc. You just don't see them because they're in this other dimensional reality. But they sometimes exchange with us. And the author of this book has taken that notion and just converting them a little bit closer to what a Christian would see as a demon of sorts, or as a spirit of nature. So you can see that already in this work. It's clearly not very familiar with Islamic mysticism, but loves the idea of it, and therefore kind of mixes it in a little bit. The talisman section is really the point of the whole work, and it's a lot of fun to read, albeit like all occultic dribble, it's highly complicated in rubrics so as to lend the work credibility. You see this with great classics of the past, like Cornelius Agrippa, that loves giving you very complicated formulas to somehow achieve silly goals. And the crazier the formula, the wilder it is. Get 3 cat legs and put it inside a bag made out of goat stomach, and then find a gold coin from Damascus and combine it with a silver token from China, then you can get a result. So the crazier, the more strange it is, the more it's supposed to work a particular effect. And I've always found that to be actually funny. So let me go further and quote what I think brings this all together. I worship you, Almighty God, for you have crowned man with such glory and made him your sovereign over all the work of your hands. My son, do you hold within yourself that heroic ambition which is the unfailing characteristic of the children of wisdom? Dare you seek to serve God alone and master all that is not God? Do you understand what it means to be a man? Are you not tired of living a slave when you were born to be sovereign? If you harbor these noble thoughts, and your horoscope leads me to believe you do, ask yourself seriously whether you possess the courage and strength of will to renounce everything that is an obstacle to your attaining the heights you were born to mount. So there, it's an appeal to Adam. It's literally a view of Genesis, that you have to reclaim sovereignty because Adam was given sovereignty over all nature, and he lost his connection to nature by the fall. Thus, nature becomes dangerous to him. But he can recuperate this power. He can become a new Adam. Now, of course, that would be a deviation from a traditional Christian point of view, which is that Jesus Christ is the new Adam. He serves that purpose. But here, there's the occultic mysticism in which we are all called to be that new Adam. And we can achieve it by knowledge, by practice, by ritual, etc. Now, obviously, atheism is nowhere to be found in this classical occult work, and I would say none of the classical occult works. So obviously, all the modern forms of this practice are in contraposition to their origin, because their origin is not atheistic. Now, if you're an atheist and you just like making cool drawings and using them as a psychological operation of sorts, then yes, of course, then it doesn't matter. But this work was not really written for that purpose. It meant to be taken seriously, and there's an inherent belief here that these talismans would work because you can influence reality through a mystical process. If you disagree with that as an atheist, that's fine, but then the work really is just a book for entertainment purposes. So all in all, it is a classic in the genre, and even though it doesn't provide any new insights into that world or any mind-blowing revelations, it does give you very interesting and interactive art, and it presents a lot of the important archetypes to think about, and it also gives you a historical understanding of how occultism developed and what books actually influenced it. Not a very long book, so easy to read. It's a good reference to kind of understand what was happening at the time. So hopefully you enjoyed the review and it gives you a perspective on these things. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, like the video, share the video, comment on the video, and click on the bell if you want to receive notices when I put out a new video. So again, I appreciate all of you sticking with me and watching my videos. See you next time.